Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you game 1 in a series between Welmu versus Lucifron. Welmu spawning as the red Protoss player on the top left hand side of the map. Meanwhile, on the bottom right, we have Lucifron spawning as the blue Terran. More TVP here, but because it is not going to be against Naniwa, we should actually see some more economic games. Naniwa, much more known for his openings where he does try to all-in his opponent relatively early. We saw that in those games in the past, and Lucifron being fairly good at fending those attacks off. We are looking at a front door supply depot here by Lucifron. Meanwhile, Welmu is going for a close to Nexus pylon as things get underway. Now, I have seen Lucifron's opening, and I can pretty much tell you what to expect if Lucifron is going to be playing it safe. He's going to be building this one barrack or supply depot here, coming back over here. It looks like he'll be building his barracks, setting up a refinery, training up a Reaper, and then upgrading to orbital command. After the Reaper is done, adding on a reactor and scouting with that Reaper. Meanwhile, I don't know exactly what Welmu's strategy is going to be. It looks as though he is going to be just continuing to get gas as any good Protoss player does. Protoss, perhaps one of the races that needs gas much more quickly than either of the races. Unlike Zerg in the past in terms of Brood War, in the past, Zerg really needed gas much more quickly than, say, Terran or Protoss. But with the changes, with the Queens, and also the introduction of the Warp Gate, Protoss players have found that Warp Gate tech is so key, so crucial, that they cannot go without it. One of the things that the Warp Gate tech does, not only does it allow you to warp in units anywhere on the field, it does take off 10 seconds worth of time in terms of training versus cooldown. We are looking at a Reaper now making its way onto the battlefield in just a moment. Halfway done here, we should be seeing a reactor come in here as well. The command center should be placed down over here in just a moment. And this is the famous Lucifron Reaper expansion. And this particular opening allows Lucifron to get level 1 weapons upgrades before the 7-minute mark. That is absolutely key here, as the Reaper is now on the move. You can see there is that reactor here. We are going to be adding a supply depot here by Lucifron, who is in a very good position. If his opponent tries to attack, he can place a bunker here instead, use the economic advantage from the additional command center, call in more mules, and train up extra marines. However, Lucifron actually going for a faster factory than I'm expecting. Not quite sure what to make of this, as Lucifron is now scouting around with this Reaper. Alright, he scouted, he saw that there is the mothership core here, and oh, the Reaper is going to be able to slip inside here. That mothership core apparently had too much cake or something, and is a little bit slower than that Reaper with that jetpack. Alright, Reaper now trying to back away here. Will be able to do exactly that. Double training of Marines now coming in. There is that factory, but I would have naturally expected a second and third barracks, followed by an engineering bay. It doesn't look like he will be going back to that old strategy that he had used against Naniwa, instead coming up with something new. We are now looking at Warp Gate tech. Stalkers now going to be trained up as well. That Reaper trying to get off some shots here, but really needs to book it out of there. There he goes. Those pistols not dealing anywhere the same amount of damage, as we are now going into a starport. Alright, so Lucifron changing things up, going into a fast starport, and this is a rather interesting opening. He is going to be trying to go for a 1-1-1 build, 1 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport. Orbital command now already making its way out, and this Widow Mine can perhaps burrow itself somewhere relatively burrow itself conspicuously somewhere and hope to deal a lot of damage. One of the reasons why Widow Mines are just that effective against Protoss units is that it does deal extra damage against shields. That is something that many players forget. I'm sure a lot of Protoss players don't forget that. That extra little bit of damage is to help compensate the fact that Zerg, on one hand, does take a little bit more damage. Oh, there is the mothership core, and there it goes. There is that photon overcharge, almost taking down a unit there. However, this is going to be a very, very bad day. Are we going to get a... Yes, there is the blast there. One probe does get taken down, and Lucifron is now training up his observer. The cooldown, 40 seconds. The observer 20 seconds away. It is not being chrono boosted though. And also, I wonder how long it takes, or how long that photon overcharge does last. Let's see if it is going to be long enough here. You can see that the Widow Mine is making... Oh, it's going to be extremely close. It is going to be extremely close. And yes, it does get taken down. All right, so one probe killed. That is it. As we are now going into the massive barracks opening, Engineering Bay, I still do not believe is on the field just quite yet, and Lucifron has a lot of work to do. Engineering Bay, not really mattering, as we are looking at Marines and a Widow Mine drop being thwarted by a handful of Stalkers once more. One Stalker there should be fine. You can see that there are observers all across the field. Marines all positioned here. Harvester count is 44 to 37. And with that slight probe advantage, something may come of this. All right, photon cannon inside the base. Widow Mine going to try to burrow itself. Not going to be able to target anything in time. But no, it does get maybe 3 or 4 worker kills. I'm not 100% sure. The medevac needs to get out of there. Oh, and one final shot does not go off. The photon overcharge getting the final shot off on that medevac. And you can see how incredibly far range that Nexus photon overcharge is. Able to take down from behind the mineral lines, and that is pretty much a stationary siege tank, dealing so much damage and really protecting that base. With this, Welmu looks to be taking up his third base. Very, very key timing here. Taking up a third base by Welmu. Welmu knows that he most likely has the advantage. You can see Harvester sitting at 47 to 47 right now, but he has the opportunity to actually expand. Let's take a look at the army supply, 27 to 19. Lucifron actually has the advantage right now, but isn't making any real headway with this. This is rather strange. You can see Lucifron is already on his third orbital command, so he is going to be able to catch up and surpass the worker count. And I take it back. Welmu is actually not in that good of a situation. I thought that Welmu had been holding Lucifron's attacks at bay, and this might come as a surprise, not only to me, but to Welmu, that he is actually slightly behind. You can take a look at the worker supply, 50 to 52. Terran ahead. Army supply, 23 to 39. Ahead there as well. He's getting level 1 weapons upgrades. Meanwhile, 1-1 upgrades for the Terran, and also getting Ghost. We are going into, I believe, a Templar Archives, but a Ghost Academy is already being added as well. And with Ghost versus High Templar, and I do believe that the Ghosts do have a slight advantage as long as they can get those snipes down. Welmu still needs a little bit of time to even get Psystorm finished and researched, as we are now looking at a Mobius reactor coming online for all of those Ghosts. 2 High Templars, 2 Zealots. This could be a deadly, deadly drop inside the main here. You can see 14 over 24 Harvesters. We are going into an armory for 2-2 upgrades, as we are now looking at a, what is this, 1 lone Marine trying to do a little bit of scouting, making sure that this third base has been taken. All right, this Marine will spot this here in just a moment. Meanwhile, the Warp Prism on its way in to the north side of the Terran main base. This could be potentially deadly. This one Marine, does it get any kills? No, it doesn't. Another photon overcharge was lost there, as Welmu is going to be dropping in High Templars straight inside the base. Beautifully done. Is he going to Psystorm himself? There he goes. Psystorms himself. So many SCVs taken down. Another Psystorm. And wow, so much loss there. Meanwhile, a huge drop inside the main. Welmu gonna lose his main Nexus here, as the Marines and the Marauders are now fighting back. All right, no photon overcharge possible when the Nexus is gone, and that is gonna be a huge loss. Again, another Nexus lost once more. That is a huge, huge loss again, as the Templar Archives gets taken down. All right, Lucifron having 1 unit in the medevac. Oh, quickly realizes gonna back away, and many of those units were able to survive. Beautifully done. But what is this? Welmu may reinforce here in just a moment. Harvester count 60 to 53. Medivacs now on the way back. We are going to be going into a bit of what is this? A bit of zealots trying to make their way through. Nope, does not charge in at all. And after a whole bunch of deadly conflict, Terran is once again ahead in the total overall supply, but down in workers. All right, we are going into 2-2 upgrades for the Terran. Meanwhile, level 2 upgrades for the Protoss. We are neck and neck as we are now looking into a transition of Colossi. Colossi, very, very deadly here. We can see one proxy pylon in position. The units are already in response, getting over here to the far side, and there's the scanner sweep, revealing that, yes, there must have been an observer somewhere to catch this all going down. Marauders now may try and snipe down this nexus here. There's a handful of zealots. Welmu most likely realizing that that is exactly what's going on as the Marauders and the Marines are now pushing in here. Okay, there's a Psystorm, backs it off again, but there is still a major attack coming in. There is the Psystorm, or there is the Scanner Sweep again. The High Templars are all there, ready to go, and the Marauders and the Marines realize, you know what, I just need to cut my losses. There is no good time for a drop right now. Let me just try and put my pressure onto the main stage. Infernal Pre-Igniter now being added for the Hellbats. Hellbats will be dealing additional damage as well. This is looking very, very good. Hellbats getting that extra damage as the Medivacs will be forced to back off here. One Marine still sitting down. High Templar, Zealots, and Sentries all in position. High Templar is maxed out on both energy and shields and hit points there. That's why you don't see their hit point bar at all. All right, you can see the High Templars making a move out across the field. You can see the Warp Prism perhaps trying to do in another drop. Viking on patrol, and this Viking is in patrolling the wrong location perhaps, as we now see one Marine trying to run away from the Zealots. Oh, poor Zealot just gets taken down, sliced apart right there. The Zealot's not close enough to that Zelnaga tower though to actually activate it. Coming back around, the Medivacs are moving forward. Meanwhile, you can see that there are some Medivacs here. You can see a drop could come into play in just a moment. Colossus gonna get sniped down. There it goes, as we now see Zealots, Sentries pushing their way through. All right, that Sentry in the right spot, just outside of range of this Marauder bunker here. There's a force field, and the units will not be able to get out. Meanwhile, another drop now coming in. You can see the Marauders and the Marines. There is the feedback again onto the Medivac. All right, are we going to take down the Nexus? I do believe so. The Nexus taken down for the third time as the Medivacs. Are they going to pick up the rest of the fleeing units? No, they are not. A handful of Marauders and Marines get torn apart by a whole bunch of Side Blades. 183 supply versus 170. All right, Sentry now going after the units here. Marauder unable to fight back. Oh, getting in some easy shots. There it goes, finally getting taken down after so long, as there is still one observer sitting down here keeping track of this drop. Lucifron still having no idea that those Medivacs are constantly being spotted. All right, Colossus, long distance mining from the main base. You can see down over here that the Nexus, High Templars, Stalkers are all in position once more. All right, this could be bad. Oh, wow. That was beautifully done by Welmu, feedbacking both of the high hit point Medivacs, and the Stalker finishing off the low hit point Medivac. Talk about a quick way of losing a whole bunch of resources. 78 units lost versus 35. Total losses are about even. Protoss ground weapons upgrade. Level 3, we are now going into Blink. Level 3 infantry upgrade for Terran. Ghost still being trained in triplicate as the Hellbats force a cancellation here at the 3 o'clock position. Meanwhile, in a major attack still coming in. All right, the Marines able to fight back. One Widow Mine off over here as well. A Zealot now going to try to make its way in. There are two Marauders in position. Now, one Zealot is not going to be able to do very much. Oh, you can see the charge now trying to rush in. Not able to stand up to those concussive grenades as it gets taken down. Personal cloaking for those ghosts now being added. Terran ship upgrades, level 1 for the battle against the Colossus. The Vikings need to make their way over. Oh, ghosts could perhaps try to get some EMP shockwaves off, as we see that the photon overcharge is activated on the Nexus. Here you go. In comes the units again. No, they are not. There are a whole bunch of Vikings in the air. 199 versus 197 supply, but Welmu does have the larger bank. With that larger bank, he'll be able to replenish his units much more quickly, and especially with those warp gates, he'll be able to replenish those units back into the field. That is going to be huge, training them all up in just a moment there. You can see the Widowmine getting in another kill, up to 2 already. We'll see whether or not that will be working as we're looking at the observers. Colossus may get taken down here. Is it going to get taken down? That is a lot of damage. All right, as the Stalkers are unable to get into position, there's a Psystorm, but not successful. The Stalkers blinking now as the Vikings are not engaging at all. That was not a good fight at all for Lucifron. Lucifron needs to pick and engage rather carefully. You can see some beautiful EMP shockwaves depleting all of the shields now, as the Vikings may try to get in position again. The Stalkers do have blink. Meanwhile, on the bottom left-hand side, Zealots repairing the bunker. The bunker is just working or getting worked overtime there. It looks like it will be enough. Meanwhile, another major attack happening over here. The photon cannons getting absolutely destroyed. It looks as though, the SCV stopped repairing. I'm not quite sure why, but the SCV stopped repairing, thereby allowing the Zealots to finish off everything again. All right, SCV is now being brought over. Lucifron bringing over a couple of SCVs once more. 200 supply versus 187. The Ghosts are upgraded 3-2, soon to be 3-3. But the Protoss are even getting those shield upgrades. That is going to be a very important element in this next fight, as Lucifron quickly engages the VTOL on those Vikings to get back into the air. All right, there goes another unit once more. Vikings all next to each other, all grouped up, ready to go. You can take a look here. Lucifron not going to be able to land until he gets rid of that Zealot. That Zealot does get taken down rather easily, and we are now looking at perhaps a rather large engagement coming up next. Lucifron nearing maximum supply. Meanwhile, Welmu is at maximum supply with 6 Colossi, over a dozen Stalkers, almost 2 dozen Stalkers in fact, as the High Templars are now making their way into position. All right, there's the scanner sweep. Are we going to see some EMP shockwaves? There is some EMP. No, let's see those EMP shockwaves. Are we going to see them go down? Psystorm coming in as well. Archons now being added as well. Ghosts and the personal cloaking, even more EMP coming in. And that was a huge turnaround as the Vikings go after the Colossus. Ghosts may try to go after even more of these units, as another pylon will be falling. There it goes, 115 versus 145. And Lucifron looks like he is just straight up winning this fight here. He is chasing all the units. Another Immortal gets down. A High Templar is now getting taken down as well. Ghosts are still in this engagement. The Ghosts, 13 of them, just dealing so much damage to all of these units across the board. High Templars trying to come in, getting in even more Psystorm. Is it enough? It looks like some of those Ghosts are now out of cloak, and we are still seeing all of these units try to push their way in. Ghost, 1 Zealot now down, a Stalker now down. The Ghost trying to stutter step their way back. It looks like it is absolutely working, as the probes are all falling. Worker kill count 75 to 21. So we can still see that Welmu has killed more workers, but he has not done enough just quite yet. Let's take a look. The Nexus is about to fall. Vikings are in position. The Vikings, the probes, battling it again. The Ghosts, however, are fully upgraded, dealing 26 damage to any light unit before you account for shields and armor. Archon now makes its way in. It will get taken down. All right, in comes the Ghost. Perhaps the Ghost could call in or nuke or do a little bit of something here. There is, massive feedback across multiple Ghosts, but all of those Ghosts had already been using Cloak for so long that they didn't really suffer that much damage. All right, the Nexus has now gone down. Welmu looks like he is pretty much up the creek without a paddle. He has nowhere really he can run safely to, and with nowhere to run safely to, he needs to figure out where he can find more resources. This base on the top right, 14/24. The base here at the 3 o'clock position will get taken out in just a moment. It looks like it will fall down to 1,000 hit points and falling. And as it falls, there it goes. Down it goes. A couple of photon cannons off here. These will get cleaned up rather nicely. And now Welmu down by about 60 workers, 28 workers to 30, 60 supply, 28 workers to 37. We have a planetary fortress off over here by Lucifron, protecting that all-important third base. Main base is nearly mined out. We can see this massive bioforce looking to charge on in once again. However, that is a lot of AoE you have to account for. Production tab shows more medevacs being added as well. And are we going to see more Vikings perhaps? The Vikings could really benefit from getting some repair jobs in. Those Vikings really low on hit points. Being able to repair is always a very good call, as the Vikings themselves are the main counter to those Colossus. If the Colossus is able to do its job and just start swiping through that entire Terran army, Lucifron with his 60 supply advantage may end up losing all of this in just a second. However, Lucifron feels fairly confident that he is mining more than his opponent. He knows that he doesn't have to hit and overextend himself. He's just waiting for the right opportunity, as a couple of SCVs now working overtime to get some repair work done on these Vikings. Alright, Archons now make their way over again. We can see the Marauders, 3 Marauders, a handful of Marines, and some Ghosts on the move out here. How many Ghosts is that? That is 10 Ghosts and over 24 Marines. Yep, over 24, 26 Marines in fact. And what is going to be happening? So far, the Psystorm, the back and forth battles, but Welmu is just so far behind here. I don't believe he can actually land all of his AoE unless it's absolutely perfect. All right, looking to back off again. You can see that there is a Nexus here at the 9 o'clock position, simply waiting to get done so we could have more mining come on in. We can see Lucifron sitting at this 3 o'clock location, or the southern 3, maybe the 4 o'clock location, in order to clean up. And now, what are we going to be seeing next? There's that Psystorm. Archons now come in. Ghost. There's some EMP Shockwave. And you can see how much damage is being dealt. Oh, the Marine was able to be healed at just the right time, as the engagement's still in full chase. All right, here we go. Vikings, this may be the last battle, trying to push and take down this Colossus. You can see that the Vikings now see all of the merging Archons. That is a large of Archons there, but it's going to be simply too much. Welmu loses game 1 here on Belshir Vestige. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.